I'm excited to be hosting everybody tonight. Excited to talk about the evolution of content marketing. At The Juice, we're a B2B content platform trying to play a small role in changing some content marketing. And we're really excited about that. But I'm more excited to be joined by some awesome panelists tonight who are playing a bigger role in the evolution of content marketing. So I'm just going to try to tee up questions and let them kind of shed their wisdom with the audience here. So we're going to get started with a round of introductions. We're going to try to keep the conversation authentic and fun and informal here. I know we save time for questions at the end, but if there's anything anybody feels like is burning, feel free to speak up, raise your hand, let us know. We're going to get started with introductions. How about everybody introduce themselves, share a little bit about their business, and we'll keep the theme running by sharing your favorite current content, personal or professional, that you're learning from. Rachel, why don't we start at your end?
This is strategic.
Yes.
I was just looking for that. Just joking. My name is Rachel Eltz Downey. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Share Your Genius. We are a award-winning production company, and we like to help our clients that are primarily B2B tech realize it is never just a podcast. And I am a content jumper. So I like to listen to a lot of different podcasts, like to consume a lot of different content. I will give a shout out that I do read Daniel Incandella's newsletter. So that is one that I always find value. And I am vibing on Don't Say Content, which is a podcast that we're in partnership with producing. And then anything Devin Reed puts out, I am. So.
Good.
Hi, I'm Andy Robinson. I own Hijinks Marketing. I'm a freelance content strategist and fractional chief content officer. I'm also a professor at Butler. Today was my last class of the semester. I didn't even dump that for this semester. I wrote a book called The Content Puzzle, and I'm a frequent speaker at Content Marketing World, judge of Content Marketing Awards. My favorite, for some reason right now, I'm kind of gravitating towards sports content, so kind of flying under the radar of all the Caitlin Clark hoopla. The WNBA kind of rebranded a little bit. They are now the W. So if anybody missed that, go check it out. They had some fun. They're just the W. And they had some fun content they put out around that. And I'm eager for all the content that's going to come out of the Olympics. I'm really hoping that somebody does like a time lapse of them building the swimming pool in Lucas Oil Stadium, because that's going to be awesome.
Hello, I'm Nicole Klemp. I'm a big fan of these three. I currently work at Atrium, which is a cloud consulting company specialized in Salesforce, Snowflake, specifically like data and AI. I actually joined Atrium back in first of the year, but I had been freelancing for a couple of years before that. And then my career has been all over the place. But I've worked with multiple people in this room at different places. But yeah, I've been in content pretty much my whole career since it kind of became a thing. Even Daniel probably doesn't remember. I even contracted on his team at Salesforce for a little while. But yeah, super excited to be here. So the question about the favorite current content, Jonathan said, let's do something fun. So I was thinking, what would be really funny? And so one thing that we get these pamphlets, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Duluth Trading Company, the clothes. My husband loves their clothes, and I like some of their stuff too. But I'm a big fan of naming things that are memorable. And so they're really great at naming. So they have ballroom jeans for guys, no yank tank, and then buck naked underwear. And it's I think naming something that somebody can remember, oh, what you have a shirt from the Loft, what shirt is that? You don't have a name for it. It's it's a shirt from the Loft. There's stuff you can be oh, it's the ballroom jeans. Yeah. That was my fun.
I'm going to kind of combine two of your guys' on favorite content. I'll keep sports theme rolling and the physical. I'm a big golfer. There's a subscription called Golfer's Journal. It's a quarterly print magazine that does really high quality photography and really long read articles. I just think it's a really cool way to zig when everyone else is zagging right now. It's something I look forward to every quarter. So cool. Well, okay, so the title of the panel is Evolution of Content Marketing. That is a very big word, evolution. How much of what we're all hearing and seeing right now around AI, the playbook changing, how much of that do you guys feel is hype or overly hyped, or is very much real? I can say personally, I was speaking to a marketer a couple weeks ago, who he's been in marketing for almost 30 years now. Kind of, we were talking about this theme that everyone's saying. He's like, this is not the biggest change ever. Like, he's like, I was around when the internet became invented, right? And he's like, this is small compared to that. So I'd be curious, do any of you have a strong opinion on kind of the current state of content?
The thing that I always laugh about is like marketing is like a constant evolution because you're constantly trying to figure out how to connect with the people that you ultimately want to build a relationship with. And so it's like keeping up with what consumers are looking for. But I think that the thing that I can't speak to as probably as well as you can, but like the marketing principles actually haven't changed. And so it's like knowing like who you're trying to talk to, why you're trying to talk to them, what they care about, getting inside their heads and like their hearts, and like that's what matters most. And so to me, it's like all the conversation around AI and like everything's changing so fast. I was like, is it really? Because people are still people at the end of the day. And like that's your job as a marketer, is to build trust, get people to take action. You know what I mean? It's about behavior, and it goes back to building relationships, which is all human.
Yeah, I think AI is just another tool in our toolbox. Unfortunately, I think, there are varying ways that people are using it, which I know we're going to talk about AI here in a little bit. But as far I totally agree with you. Being a professor of marketing, it's very hard to teach marketing because like the books are 2 years old, the textbooks. And I am very frank with my students about like, this isn't the way it really works. Like I'm going to teach the book, but this is not the way it really works. And there's just that constant evolution of, like today we talked about social media and, they're still talking about Twitter in the book, and I'm like, it's not around anymore. But the basics are the same. It's like you really have to have your strategy. You have to know your audience, and play to your content to that audience. I mean, everybody talks about, the best practices here, the best practices here. Yes, some of that is true, but everything is different for everybody. I mean, it depends on your product. It depends on your audience, what content you're going to use. So I think it varies. I tell my students, I said, marketing is gray. Like if you're in a finance role, it's like pretty black and white. But marketing is very different. It's, you never know, like, you can't just zig and zag, based on what everybody says are the best practices or the way it should be done. You need to focus on your business, your customer, and providing the best content to them based on their needs.
That's a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
If you tell your students how like this textbook is out of date, how do you encourage, like, are there resources or places you tell them to go to stay up to date?
Yeah, so we use Canvas for our online teaching platform. If you've ever taught or had kids, you probably are familiar with it. I have a running page on there that I add it's called additional resources. And I put AI stuff on there. I put articles, I put links to websites like Marketing AI Institute, Content Marketing Institute, and all these other places so that they can keep up on that. And we do talk a lot in class about things that are current. Obviously there's some things I have to teach to the book too, but yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think when I studied marketing years ago, nothing existed today that like the technology, none of it even was a thing yet. Social media was barely a thing. I think Facebook was still, just for college kids at that time. So I think that's the theme of the night probably, is marketing's always changing. For the AI piece, I think it's not going to be so much that we're going to say, AI, please do my marketing, and AI is going to take it. It's going to be embedded into the everyday tools that we're already using. I think we're starting to see that now already. And I feel like it could be a way to just help us be more creative, not spend so much time on, kind of menial tasks, but more time thinking of bigger ideas and ways to reach people. I hope that that's where we're headed.
Are there any emerging tools or channels that you all are like running to right now that is new, or anything that is kind of going out of style based on what you're seeing?
Overall tools or AI tools?
Overall.
Oh.
We'll start there.
I don't know that there's any that are new. I think people are discovering more tools. My big thing has always been like, if somebody owns a tool or piece of software and they say, it does everything, then they don't do anything well. And I think people are starting to realize that you have to have the right tool for the job, for what you're trying to accomplish, and then connect them, which is not always easy. We know this, having to deal with IT teams and all that stuff within organizations. But I think people are realizing that you just can't have one tool to do everything, because then they're missing the mark on something.
Rachel, what about podcasting? Because are there emerging, like, I know transcribing podcasts,
Yeah.
distributing podcasts is all changing very quickly.
I mean, it's interesting because when you asked that question, I wasn't even thinking tools. I was thinking more like, what are people not paying enough attention to in order to get their message heard and seen by the people they want? And at the end of the day, to me, it's people. And so it's like, who are the people within your organization that you're not maximizing their expertise or their channels or anything like that? Because when I think of like the emerging things that all marketers should be thinking about, to me, it is audio and video, because audio and video is the one place that, for the most part, you can get the most authenticity out of people, because it's real time, it's live, it's like primarily how we communicate. You can't like feel people unless you can see people. You can't feel unless you can hear them. You know what I mean? Some of those things. And so to me, it's like I'd be thinking about, how am I going to get my people out there, because that's what my brand ultimately needs to get out there. And then, are there tools that can help me scale it? Absolutely. I'm all about building GPTs right now. There's a billion transcription tools out there. They're all the same. You know what I mean? There's recording software out there. I mean, I'm happy to like share our tech stack. But that's what I would be thinking about. It's what I am thinking about.
Nicole, anything you're seeing?
It's nothing new, but I would say I'm really impressed with Canva right now. We have a small marketing team, which I'm sure some of you probably do as well. And we don't have a designer on our team right now, and we use Canva for Teams, and just the stuff that they're rolling out, it's just kind of amazing. So yeah, I think but like I think Andy said, you have to use what works for your team. Not the same tool isn't going to work for every kind of company, every kind of whatever. If you're B2B, if you're B2C, you have to find what fits with your team and the people that you have, the talent that you have, and where can you fill in the gaps with technology. I think that it's important, especially if you have a smaller team.
I was saying it'll be interesting to see what happens, because Canva bought Affinity.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I use Canva every day too. So,
How many are B2B marketers? B2C? Some combination of both. So out there too. Cool. My lens is all B2B, so that's always what I don't want to bias to that. But so I shared a story during a pre-call, but the Juice was fundraising, right, as generative AI came out. And are there any venture capitalists in the room? Let's throw some shade. It was right as it was like released, and I joke like all my calls ended with, they would look at me and they'd be like, "So AI, huh?" Like that was their question that I was just supposed to answer. So I kind of would turn around on you all and just, hey, we've hinted at AI. Is it coming for our jobs as marketers, specific to content? How are you all seeing it change your day to day? Is it changing your day to day? What should we make of it all? So AI, huh?
So the way I think about AI is like, so I'm all about building GPTs right now. That's like what I'm
Can you, for
doing.
those who might not,
Like, I don't even know.
I, of course,
Okay, I don't even know.
don't even know this.
But that's what I'm doing. And so basically it's like a function within ChatGPT, and you can build like a specific GPT to do a specific function for you. And so I think of those as like a stoned intern. And so it's like something that I can tell to do something very specific, but then I have to like remind it, right? Like what its function is supposed to be. Make sure it's awake, that kind of thing.
get it some snacks.
All the things. It is hungry. But it is it's wildly helpful, because what it allows you to do is like it gives you a ton of information really quickly, so that you can then parse through what like actually matters. And so if I think about a role or whatever, if it's taking anybody's job, it's taking the stoned interns. And if I were a marketer, the thing I would be, if I am a marketer, the thing that I'm focused on being really, really great at is really clear on what I need, why I need it, and then really good at storytelling. Like that's how I'm thinking about AI.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time in AI. You know, we were all like that initial rush in like fall of 2022, and it was like, oh my God, it's here. And over the course of the year, 5,000 AI companies have emerged, and I'm waiting for that point where they all kind of, maybe gel into, a couple big ones, obviously, ChatGPT and a couple of others. But I use it frequently for idea generation. I have a couple Etsy shops, so I use it to write descriptions for my product listings. I actually built a GPT to help me do that. So I do use it. I see it I see people kind of going into three camps when it comes to AI. You've got the people who are using it in the way that I think it probably should be used for idea generation and, helpful kind of things, but not like writing long form content. And then you have these other people on the side, these maybe a little bit nefarious people who are like just using ChatGPT to just churn out crappy content. They're just using it to just stuff the internet with crappy content. And then you have those people in the middle who are just kind of playing around with it. And I would actually put a lot of my students in that middle bucket because it's funny. We talk about AI like nonstop in the marketing space, but when you ask people out in the world, they're like, they just don't care. I think there's those kind of three camps that it's falling into. I actually just recently started playing around with one called Hume. I don't know if they market themselves as the first empathetic AI. It's a voice generated, so they use like intonations in your voice to determine. Yeah, it's like I think I may have posted something about this. It's like you don't really need a therapist if you have Hume because like seriously, I felt like I was in a therapy session when I was talking to this AI. They were like, "Oh, how are you doing today?" And I'm like, "Okay, this is weird."
Lauren and I were talking prior to this. I have to ask, as students using AI,
Yeah.
How are you, or are you? Can you tell?
This is so current. So I always tell my students at the beginning of the semester they can use AI for things like idea generation and brainstorming, stuff like that. I tell them what they should not use it for. Don't write your entire papers in using AI. But and some professors don't allow it. Where I teach, they give you the opportunity, they let you choose whether or not you're going to allow it or not. My opinion is they're going to need to know it. They're going to need to be familiar with it. So I allow them to use it.
Cool.
That makes me think of something Composely did. Nicole McLean's here in the front row. So they did a comparison where they had AI write a blog and then they had one of their writers write a blog. She actually sent that to me to review and see if I could tell the difference. And I could tell right away which one was the AI and which one was the human writer. I think for me, as a writer, I am very picky. I don't think it's to the level yet where I could just say, write this, here's a topic, write about it. I would hate it. I wouldn't like it. But like Andy said, I think using it for just spit out 20 ideas or 20 subject lines or, help me, I have this keyword and I want to write 10 topics about it. What could I do? Like things like that. I think it's just really helpful. Like things that I would just spend, a few hours researching, it can just spit out in a few seconds. In my opinion, it's not taking my job yet. I don't know. And I know it's getting better. So we'll see. But.
I would say like one of the practical ways I've used it, because I hear everyone and like you can tell if it's AI written, like you can. But one of the practical ways I've seen it work is like, this is just like something I've done, is I'll go look on LinkedIn and see which content that I write is most popular. And then I'll take that and I'll throw it into my GPT and I'll say, hey, go ahead and expand this into an article. Go ahead and expand that article into some other social copy. And then I'll take that and I'll go through and just like make it back myself. And so I add the soul back in. But like, if you start with, my theory of victory is that if you start with really good quality content, you actually can use AI to accelerate it and sort of create that scale. You do have to have a soul go back through it. But that's where I'm like, it's going to take your job if you're not thinking outside of the box, if you're not thinking about how to be efficient here. If you don't know what good copy is, then you shouldn't be messing with it as a resource for that.
Or if you're stoned.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways,
I do think it's an operational efficiency.
Totally operational.
And
Like, yes.
I think like creative content will stand out even more potentially now. Then Andy, I think you made a great point. Like we all as marketers in a room love talking about how we're using it, but the general public is still figuring it out. And I think it's worth keeping an eye on like, I've used it personally. Like, can you summarize this really long article? Or I think it's worth thinking about how our audience is using it as we're creating content. Like, is there a time and place for a 25-page ebook anymore? I don't know. If the mass public starts using it for summarization.
Yeah, and I would also say we've talked a lot about using it for writing. but I think graphic design is also, there's a lot of effect happening there. I just posted recently on LinkedIn about this new Dove AI ad, where they said that there was an ad that said, basically if you type in, give me the world's most beautiful woman, it'll be, blonde, thin, beauty, just your traditional view of beauty. And they basically appended that to say, show me a picture of the world's most beautiful woman according to the Dove Real Beauty ad, and it showed more realistic looking people. And they, at the end, they said, we will never use AI to mess with the models in our ads. So it's a little bit of a controversial ad, but I just thought it was really interesting because I think that's another area where you can kind of tell sometimes that it's AI generated. Of course, the 15 toes and
Hips and fingers. It's so
yeah,
weird.
exactly. There's some very obvious things, but yeah.
I think the last thing I'll say, and I know you have things you want to move on, but I think that when I was growing up in content marketing, it was all around like access to information. And so your entire job was like, I have the information, I'm an expert, give me your information, I'm gonna give it to you kind of vibes. AI has taken that away. Like the knowledge is out there. Like, so Chat GPT or whatever the function is, like that's kind of replacing Google in my opinion. And so even like with Instagram, and I haven't done a ton here, so just like forgive my surface level knowledge here, but like they just rolled out the Meta AI function within Instagram. It's like, guess what people are going to do? Like, and I did it yesterday. Give me a recipe for steak. And you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, when you think about as a marketer, what I'm supposed to be doing, how I'm supposed to be leveraging, it's like, what are the questions people are going to Google me for, AKA drop into AI for?
Yeah.
How do I create content that answers that question so that AI, because AI is sourcing you, like if you look at ChatGPT, like it will source you as a resource. So it's like, it is like a Google.
Yeah.
And so my whole point is like, you have to know what your audience is wanting. You have to create that content. You should be using AI to make it happen faster.
All right, on the theme of evolution, I'd like to ask each of you, what's a strongly held opinion you used to have on marketing that has changed recently? Thank you.
It's exciting.
Catch that.
She said it was a great question. So.
Oh, it is a great question. It's a hard
You stumped us all.
I did not.
So when I was looking at your question, I was thinking about this and I'm like, I couldn't think of anything like exactly to answer it, but I was thinking like, so I just saw somewhere on LinkedIn this week. I don't know who it was or where I saw it, so I can't credit the person, but it was like, I was thinking long form versus short form content. You mentioned earlier, like, do we need a 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 word ebook? I saw something on LinkedIn that said like, there's no such thing as content that's too long. There's just content that's too boring.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I guess it's always been different points in my career, like, oh, long form, you gotta have long form because Google wants it to have this many words. And then it's like, no, we need short form. It's gotta be just snapshots and snack size and all those, fun buzzwords.
Snackable.
Snackable, yeah.
Micro.
But I think what I've realized is it doesn't matter the length. I mean, yeah, there's algorithms and things that have an opinion, but it's about, is it interesting? Would I want to sit and read a long form piece? If it's not, then probably not. It's not really an answer, but
I like it.
it's a half answer.
I like it.
Ditto what she said. Actually, that was going to be my thing too about the long length of content. In fact, take the little poll over here on the thing. I wrote on there what I can do without 3,000 word blog posts, because that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't know if this is like necessarily a belief I had, but one thing that I am not necessarily a big fan of that's happening these days is all of these long posts on LinkedIn. Like, I don't need to read all of that. Like, I like that they have the little summary thing. Like, just summarize this 500 word social media post for me. So yeah, it's like, I don't got time for that. I just want so.
Okay, so this was helpful. I would say one of the things that I very strongly believed for a while was, and I don't know, I'm going to butcher this, but there was like this whole thing happening and lots of people talked about it. And it was like, B2B doesn't have to equal boring to boring. And it was like, all your content has to be splashy and like amazing and high quality and amazing stories and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think that's true. And I think that there's space for it, but not every brand has the budget to do something that insane. But also they don't necessarily need it in order to like reach their goals. And so like that whole idea of like boring to boring is actually the wrong way to think about it. And it all comes back down to like, who is your person? Because you might have a buyer that wants to like spend an hour or 2 hours reading a really in-depth ebook to know that like they get me, they understand me, they've thought about this, versus like if we're selling to marketers, sure, maybe they want a little splashiest, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like my whole thing of like B2B is can't be like boring. Maybe boring's okay
Yeah.
for like what you're trying to sell and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. It made me think like at Atrium, you know, I think we have fun marketing a lot of times, but you know, we also are selling to developers and we're talking to, you know, business intelligence executives. And so some of our top blogs are like in depth, like these long, something that, you know, one of our consultants wrote that's like how to do, you know, joins in a Salesforce and this, like it, and some of those are our most high performing content. To me, it's like, it doesn't all make sense. It would take, you know, I would fall asleep reading it. Just kidding, I wouldn't. But
But maybe.
maybe. But that's some of our most high performing.
Yeah.
And because that's what they want. That's what they're looking for. And so, you know, you have to put your like I'm a cool marketer hat down and say, what do my people want?
A cool marketer builds pipeline.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So it's like sometimes you don't need to do that. And sometimes boring gets the job done. And I think that's where I would just say like take your bets on things that you know can work. And like I always think to myself, what are the experiments I'm running where I can play? What are the tried and true that I know are gonna slay? I'm trying to make a rhyme now. But those are the things that like I just think sometimes we gotta give ourselves permission to be boring sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it works.
Yeah, and I think it all goes back to knowing your audience,
Yeah.
right? And testing and, you know, trying something different and seeing how it performs, how it works. The content you know publish to an engineer or developer, you know, is going to be of different format, different channels, different style than, you know, to a suburban mom. I mean, so you have to just know your audience. That's the baseline, I think.
You just put a family cup in it.
Uh,
I'm a suburban mom, I can say that.
I at a previous career stop, I was at a place where we sold to benefits consultants, and they weren't very digital at all, and like we just had to go to events and like shake their hand and look them in the eye, right? Like that was what was working. I think no matter what's evolving, I think good execution still works. So, okay, before we open it up to crowd questions, Q&A, how's the best way to learn more about each of you or your business?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's my best spot.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and pretty much across all social networks. I'm at Hijinks Marketing with a K, not a KS, or X, not a KS.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's probably the best. Just connect.
Cool. All right, let's open it up to Q&A from the audience.
Like
Question.
literally just call them, have a meeting, ask them questions. That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely ask questions. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can get that information from your customers. If you're close enough to them, it could be that one-on-one, you know, sort of communication. Reach out to them on social media, you know, however you feel comfortable reaching out to your customers and ask them what they're looking for.
One of my favorite pieces of advice I got when we were starting the Juice and like doing customer research or prospect research even was I was just asking what their biggest pain point is and like getting a fine answer. And somebody, Eric Tobias at High Alpha, told me ask 2 follow-up questions to that, and you'll get to like an actual like visceral response. You know, the first one's like very surface level, the second one's a little bit emotional, and the third one's like very like visceral. Like you just have to keep like picking away at it a little bit.
What kind of customers do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, company I work at is a self-moving policy.
Okay.
Actually, kind of for them growth rails really small community.
Okay.
So our customers are primarily like enterprise. There's some disagreement about who our buyer.
Well,
That's the first thing. Yes.
Create content for the person, so are they able to pay us? That's the question. But primarily like enterprise C-suite.
Yeah. So if you like any existing customers, if they would give you the time to just sit down with them and just pick their brain a little bit, would probably be good, because it is hard to like can't just call up a random executive and be like,
Right.
"Hello, CEO of Pepsi, I need to talk to you." But yeah, existing customers, especially if you have a great relationship with them, definitely take advantage of that.
But I would be shocked if you don't get access to people who can help you, because people at the end of the day want to help you win for them. So they're going to engage, and like that's been my experience time and time and time again. Also record it.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, it's Content Marketing Institute, marketing, the Marketing AI. I want to say institute, but I don't think that's the right word. So those are two. The Juice. I'm a big fan of the Juice. So those are probably the big ones that I follow, but there's a lot of little ones.
Yeah, like the big one, like Adobe, I think is awesome. Canva, I think I fangirling on Canva today for some reason. Yeah, trying to think off my head.
B2C, I love Nike. I think their
Yeah.
copywriting is so good, and it's always short, which I think is like such a skill. I don't know, that's very inspirational for me. And then B2B, I would say, I think their playbook has changed a little bit, but Gong, I feel like, is a classic example because they would always share data. And I think proprietary data is like the key to making really engaging and content that can't be replicated by AI. I think they do a really nice job. Used to, they've changed a little bit.
So the only wrinkle I'll add is like I will look at what reality TV
Yeah.
like channels, like what Bravo does. I will look at that kind of stuff like for a ton of inspiration. Just like it's entertaining for me, but I also like see how it drives like a ton of engagement conversation. So
My son is 10 and he's like huge, into YouTube and like YouTube shorts and stuff. And I'll just watch it just to see what these generation alpha or whatever they are now. I'm just like the way that they take in content is so different from us. And so I like to just like fly on the wall, just see what he's watching, and just some of it's kind of wild, but it's the future, I guess.
Devin Reed's another good one.
oh yeah, I mean it literally anything that he puts out, I pay attention to. Jay comes in. So in my opinion, who owns the brand voice is the CEO. It's like the founder. It's that. So if there's no brand strategy around that person or who else you've deemed as the voice of the company, then it completely falls flat, in my opinion. Literally, if I were a betting woman, which I am, I would literally say like, if your people are not creating content on behalf of your brand, you are missing out a massive opportunity, which is why I watch things like, what is Bravo doing?
Sure. It's probably a big like question I missed out on. I feel like so much of at least B2B content right now is shifting from the brand voice to the individuals at the brand representing the brand, which is sometimes really good, sometimes can be a
There's tension.
challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the brand voice shows up in other ways or other places that are not touched by AI. So it's your events, it's your, things like that, where there's more that personal touch that AI is not going to replicate. I think that's still an opportunity for you to use your brand voice.
Yeah, I think in your employer brand too, like, not just using your subject matter experts in marketing content, but just what kind of culture do you have at your company? Speaking to that, injecting that into your marketing, I think is important because, if you have a great culture internally, it kind of shines through externally too.
Which is also is a critical point when you think about the role of content marketing, because where a lot of the tension lies when it comes to if I give this person access to the microphone or they're on camera everywhere, or whatever, like what if they leave or what if they do something outside? Well, if they're aligned with the culture values at your organization, you're going to have less of that like issue if you're truly hiring to culture fit and values alignment, which is what everyone talks about doing. So anyways, but the brand strategy, the go-to-market stuff, that falls under the CEO. To be good at storytelling.
Yeah.
I will literally send you a stack, but there's an organization called Brand Storytelling. And I would highly recommend their newsletter, engaging with their content. They have like an entire online, it's like $500 a year. You have access and you can watch like even the brands you guys mentioned, like the B2C, like any documentary that a B2C company puts out, it's there. Any shorts like that are putting out, it's there. So brand storytelling is a phenomenal resource for that. But the best way to be a great storyteller is to tell more stories, because you learn what's hitting, you learn what's not hitting, that kind of thing. But literally it's creating it, researching it, listening to podcasts, I'm trying to think what other books.
You mentioned Jay Kunzo.
Jay Kunzo's great.
He's great at storytelling. I'm actually writing my second book, and it's not a business book. It is a young adult novel. So this is something I pay a lot of attention to because I'm kind of dealing with story arc and the characters and stuff like that. It's not brand storytelling, but it's storytelling nonetheless. And so there are a lot of different organizations out there that can help you kind of frame your story. And I think it's all about the kind of the chemistry of the different parts of the story and kind of how they fit together. So
Yeah, I think another piece too is interviewing your customers, because sometimes you need somebody to hold a mirror up to your brand and say, oh, we love you guys because you're this. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize that's how we were. And so I think just interviewing customers, they can really kind of help you tell your own story, because just their interactions with your team and the service that they've received, it can help you kind of shed light on that too.
The other thing I'll say that has been really helpful is like if you're trying to practice, like be a good storyteller, and like how do I know what's good and what's not, is like when you think about like sort of like a tactic of approach, it's like there's two things that need to be true in creating content that resonates. You have to empower your audience, so knowing who they are, what they care about, and then you have to functionally give them something. So it's like every fairy tale, every story you read, there's a lesson, right? There's a functional application while they've empowered you. So it's like as I'm skimming through whether this is good or not, I'm going, this is empowering. Did I get something out of it? Yes or no? And then the last thing I'll say about story specific is I think we get too hung up on the full thing without recognizing just like there are the best stories told are the moments, not the whole matter. So it's like, what are those like little moments of transition? What are the little moments of inflection? And it's like, even if you don't know it yet, when you feel the transition or you feel the inflection, you should go, oh, something happened there. Let me dig in. I don't know if that's
Yeah, super helpful. Thank you.
I think there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is to give them some sort of incentive to do that, sort of gamifying it. There are, platforms out there that you can use to help with employee advocacy and things like that. So your SMEs have some guidelines around that to kind of know what they should and what they shouldn't be sharing. I think that's a big part of it. I've worked in a lot of regulated companies. So there's a lot of things, we don't want our people out there saying. So putting those guidelines in place and, kind of the processes that they need to go through to, if they need to get their content approved or not. And maybe some people you allow to have a little bit more leeway than others. But I think when you're starting that kind of process of employee and leadership advocacy for your company, you need to give them a reason to do it. Otherwise, they, are just going to be like, why do I have to do this? Right? It's one more thing I have to do on top of everything else. So giving them a little incentive to do that, I think is very beneficial, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think piling on to that, I agree 100%. Also, just really ramping up the enablement, because you have some people that'll they love everything you put out, they'll share it, and that's great. But then you have other folks who maybe they're not as comfortable on social media, or maybe they don't post a lot, and just really giving them a really a great overview of like, oh, if it's a blog or whatever, you want them to share, hey, this is what this is about. Here's a quick summary. This is who it's valuable for. This is the audience that you should, touch with this. And this is why it might be interesting to the people in your network. Give them that information, and even maybe write sample posts for them, for people that just aren't really comfortable with that. And say, hey, you can use this if you want, make it your own or not use it all. Totally up to you. But I think the more you enable people, the more likely they'll just do it.
Make it easy.
Yeah. Only thing I would add to that is I would say a couple things. One is not everybody needs to talk for your brand. But secondly, I would actually carve out an opportunity to really think through their unique point of view and like their thought leadership strategy, so that it's less like another thing I have to do that I haven't vetted, that I haven't read, and more like, no, this is who I am. This is what I want to share. Because if we go back to that idea of like the brand voice question, it's like the point of view they're going to the marketplace with has to fit under that brand voice. That's your job. And then it's your job to like then get their unique angle and then equip them with the content to share. By the way, this is another way that you can use AI to help. But you first have to start with like nailing the strategy, nailing the point of view, and then iterate and evolve from there.
I think this is always a tricky kind of question. having taught undergrads this semester, I have a little different viewpoint. I think that those of us who are in the position to hire people tend to have a certain viewpoint of, you know, who we are looking to hire. And I think the generations are very different now. The way that they approach work, the way that they, you know, take in content like we were talking about. So I think as far as where they fit into the organization, I think there's still, you know, a good place for them. It's about finding their passion. I think people always do better when they're passionate about what they're doing. So if there's an area that they're really interested in, I think that's where you kind of start with them. And interns and entry level folks are moldable. You know, you can kind of shape them into kind of what your needs are. And so as far as, you know, skills and what they're missing, it's been a little while since I've hired anybody, so I don't know that there's any skills necessarily missing. Maybe AI, just because, like I said, I don't see students or young folks using AI a lot. So that may be an area that they need to focus on. But I think that having a younger generation in your group is a benefit. It's a diversity point. They have a point of view that you may not be thinking of that may be perfect for your, you know, for your marketing plan or for your content. And you need to be able to be open to that and not be like, no, you can't do that.
That's Nicole. You mentioned how your 10-year-old consumes content. Like Gen Z, who I think is the current hiring, like they consume content way differently than we do. Like I think if they have an ability to like come in and teach and like provide an opinion and provide like a perspective, I think that's incredibly valuable. And I think it's almost on the team doing the hiring to be open to that as much as it is, you know, them trying to fill a skills gap or something.
Yeah, I have a Gen Z son who's getting ready to graduate from Ball State, and he and his friends hardly ever post on social media.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to see pictures. Yeah, I'm like, but yeah, they hardly ever post, which I think is interesting and, you know, not something I had expected. But I'm like, okay, good for you.